It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. It's Feedback Friday. And this Feedback Friday, I want to start thanking everyone who corrected me that Tuvok in Star Trek was on Voyager, not Deep Space Nine. So just goes to show I'm pulling those references from memory and not Googling them. So all's well that ends well. Okay, it is Feedback Friday. We're going to burn through the stuff with men paying for dates, and I said, is anybody interested in this thing? And someone said yes on a particular thing, but I also want to give a shout out to all the people that said about the weird video that thank you they felt seen regarding that. So that's always nice when that happens. That's what I live for, which is why I tend to do somewhat off-center takes. So let's do the Patreon and then dig right in. Help support this channel. Become a monthly patron. Patreon.com/Leanna K. Very, very important. Or buy a one-time Leanna Cares session for someone who can use it but can't afford it. Coffee.com/Leanna K. If you want to sign up for monthly Leanna Cares sessions via Coffee as well, if you want your money to go specifically to the Leanna Cares program, that is that is a possibility as well. God, blanked right there. So yeah, so about the paying for thing, that was a really, the last few Manly Monday videos have been pretty profound in terms of the conversations. So it's nice to be able to talk to guys and hear patterns and then use those patterns to make videos so other people can feel heard and seen. So system is working. Oh yeah. Anybody who has signed up for the alternative email form, you know what it's about. This is very cryptic, but this is for patrons and Kickstarter backers. Please check your email that has gone out. You need to redeem your codes in the next week to get signed up for the updates. So please check that and let us know if there is a problem. Very important. Okay, moving on. So the paying for things comments are sort of in two buckets. One is feedback from the paying for things, and then a thing about the enthusiasm versus desperation, or as one commenter said, getting into NATO dating. NATO, not attached to outcome. Yeah, but let's do the direct feedback first. One person said, the bigger deal made about the man paying for it, the less the man should. That, I agree. I expand that to a lot of things. You know, the greater deal made about ladylike behavior or manly behavior or any gender conforming at all, the less you should. Because that is something that should be natural to you, not forced, because it's all about, you know, being accepted for you. And there are people who are, you know, naturally kind of gender typical or traditional in their thinking, and there's nothing wrong with that. The place we want to get is that there is no value judgment on anything that feels like this is what a person actually wants, not what they should want, not what they're forced to want. Some people just want to be primarily parents, right? Some people want to be totally work-oriented, of all genders. And it's just a race to the bottom, trying to make one or the other the only correct way. It just, systems function better when there's more flexibility. Pretty much that's it, right? TLDR. So on, and that also goes for anything. The harder someone pushes, and one person said that the more someone pushes, the more they push back. And that's how you do it matters, because you got to be careful that you're not being set up. But yeah, in general, I understand that the bigger a deal someone makes of something, the more it might be worth digging in and saying, fuck no. But that's just where I'm coming from. I'm, low in agreeableness for women. And I hate that's got to be programming, right? Because, anyway, moving on. I could go down a rabbit hole here. I'm not going to, but I will say that this is true of anything regarding the more somebody pushes, you're so selfish, the less you should care. The more someone is obsessed with a lot of guys, well, not a lot, but multiple guys in the comment said that, a woman who focuses too much on appearance, look presentable, but beyond that, it's not really what they're interested in for, various things about what it says about that person. And I do think that's an important male point of view to bring forward, because of course what women are taught is if you don't look like a model, you'll die alone. No, guys, for real. That's what women are indoctrinated with. So I think that's important to put forward, that there are different preferences. And the thing about preferences is we get really hung up on them. Everybody has a type until they meet someone they're attracted to that is not their type. And the most important thing is how someone makes you feel. If you feel comfortable and attractive and wanted around them, then that's the most important thing. And if you need to be needed, you don't give people the ability or space to want you. And that's teeing up again the not attached to outcome dating, the not being too desperate. But I do think as well that, the bigger deal made about a man paying, the less the man should. Flip that around, guys, and be aware, the more deal you make about getting sex, the less women gonna want to. The same principle applies. If you seem like you're waiting that too much, it's no different than being after a guy for his money. Conduct yourselves accordingly. So ongoing. And that's true for women too. I mean, women who go on about the size of certain male body parts, whatnot, red flag, guys. Like, honestly, red flag. Anything superficial like that, red flag. Don't waste your time, right? Okay. Comment. Almost 15 years ago, I went to coffee with a platonic female acquaintance, and she got offended when I paid for her coffee without asking her. We were both working a job with casual hours at the time, and I was getting a lot more hours than her because I speak French and was trained on more of our projects, so the idea of expecting her to pay for anything felt ridiculous to me. Turns out I should have discussed it first. Discussing it first is always ideal. If you're not sure, ask. I work with a lot of people who say, I don't know what to do in social situations. So ask. There are plenty of social situations where people don't know what to do. People who are more socially trained, so to speak, ask. It's funny because that was the opposite, well, gender flipped version of when I started doing peer counseling work. I got a lot of, well, if you really care, you'll do it for free. And I thought, okay, I should do some free stuff. But because I primarily work with men, I find that with a lot of guys, it's a healthy pride thing. I'm not saying this pride is a sin. I'm saying this pride is a sense of self thing, that a lot of people want to pay something, even if it's not a lot. They want to pay something. They don't like the idea of getting handouts. They don't like the idea of getting something for free. And when we're trying to build self-esteem, that's really important. So that was an interesting lesson for me, that I was trying to be nice, but if that is really your intention, which it was, then you have to listen when you're making somebody feel worse instead of better. It's always great for me when someone says to me, look, my financial situation has improved. I can go back to paying, full price. Awesome. That means that subsidized service can go on to somebody else. There's always somebody who can use it. So, but I do find it, and I respect the hell out of that. I do agree, because this is something I got really put off with the self-help industry. Invest in yourself. Spend $500 to $3,000 on a course, right? $5,000 a month for personal coaching. Holy shit. I just couldn't, I could not bring myself to charge somebody $5,000 a month for coaching services. There'd have to be more to it than that. Don't make that dirty. Well, make it dirty if you want. It's just not true. But there is something to investing in yourself. It's not wasting money. It's spending money. And the act of putting a little bit into something because you're worth it, that can be very powerful. So there you go. Another comment. And this is from a woman, so it's important. You'll find out. I think something to keep in mind here, and why it can backfire for men to be too extravagant during early dating, is that while not every love bomber is an abuser, every abuser love bombs. Most women of sense and character will view that as a red flag, and women who expect the moon and stars from a man right away and see it as a green flag are often walking red flags themselves. It isn't appropriate to spend a fortune on someone you barely know, but it is equally inappropriate to expect someone you barely know to spend a fortune on you. This is a red flag for both sides. Now, we can quibble that every abuser is not a love bomber, but love bombing is a massive component of narcissistic abuse, because ultimately the love bombing is about the person doing the love bombing, and too much romance fiction does elevate the love bomb. And I have never been a big grand gesture person, and I think maybe that's why it always seems like performative. And I guess because I'm a performer for a living in a lot of ways, I want my personal stuff to be sincere. And I see people, on Facebook and everything, writing this big long thing about their significant others, and it's like, should I be doing that? And then it's like, no, that's not my style. I'll tell the person. And I used to do this stuff trying to fit in because I saw other people doing it. And I guess some people like it. And I got called a narcissist for it, or calling attention to myself. And I realized that wasn't what I was doing. But my style is to tell the person directly. I personally think it means more when you tell the person directly how much you mean to them with specific detail. I know there are different love languages. A combination of all of them is kind of nice. But to me, really specific, you're important to me, and here is why. It means the world. And I think that there's not enough of that stuff. And when we got into the stuff about compliments and, reciprocity in relationships, I think that's really coming to the fore, that there are a lot of deficits on all sides with things, and we can get into that more. The idea of men feeling left out in the discussion of like women's only spaces, because men's only spaces sort of have a pejorative attached to it. But enough about that for now. We'll we'll deal with that on Monday. So now on to the thing that I promised to talk about off the top. Distinguishing enthusiasm from must make it happen, desperation. Now the commenter said, mindset is one thing, I suppose, but if there's anything beyond just having a good time right now and not caring about the outcome, I know younger me and anyone else who's not completely given into apathy would really appreciate to know. Again, we're going back to what the other commenter said. NATO dating, not attached to outcome. If you're this is a mindset. One, you've got to have the self-worth and self-compassion to pull this off. And how to build that is very specific to each individual person, you know, based on your specific personality makeup. And there's no wrong answers there. And then, you know, your past history of things like abuse, neglect, so on and so forth, gaslighting, and whatnot. How to build self-worth is very idiosyncratic, which is why I started the one-on-one coaching stuff. So that is the first step, really being, and this goes for not just dating. It goes for business networking. It goes for job interviews. Really being of the mindset. And God, with jobs, it's tough. When you really need a job, you can put a lot of pressure on yourself and then blank in the interview. But ideally, you go into it going, you know what? I'm going to go in here. It's practice. Even if I don't get the job, I'll sharpen my skills. That's one way to do it. Learning about the company is one thing. Going, okay, at least I got the opportunity. That's something I'm really big on. I appreciate every opportunity I'm given for things because of how many have been artificially not given to me. And that's a big reason that I got into a lot of the gender stuff, because I was aware of all the different ways I was being protected out of opportunities. Oh no, that gig's too dangerous. They give it to a man. Oh no, there's too much pressure. Give it to a man. Social media is too rough on women. They give it to a man. This is why I am not super big on like women's only spaces. It's a short-term band-aid that doesn't solve problems and ultimately shoves women out of public participation for safety reasons. And a lot of those safety reasons make me wonder, well, if it's unsafe, why are we making men do it? You know, we're not in the age anymore where, you know, physically beating someone is the most common form of abuse. And, you know, muscles don't stop weapons. So, right. I mean, fighting somebody off, it's a bit of a fallacy, but that's not the topic. I'm getting off topic. So that is a big part of it. Healthy goals are based on things you can control. I say this on It's Not Therapy. 100 episodes of It's Not Therapy this week. Woohoo! Yeah, the goals have to be within control. So you're going in there prepared. You gave it your best, and preparing for dates with topics to talk about. All of that stuff can really help. Questions to ask. I go into things, my go-to is just trying to learn something. So if you do a meeting, for instance, even if it goes nowhere, you can learn insights about the business and the other person's experiences doing something. And I have found that because of that attitude, even if nothing comes of the meeting, I learned something about that nature of that business. And that is very, very useful for a lot of things, especially living in a very fickle city like Toronto. Getting money out of anyone in the GTA, it's like water in the desert, man. Everybody's like, well, it's exposure. No, you can't eat exposure. You know, it's one thing to be sponsoring something. That's for, you know, the feel good, the boost you get. But it's always like, come do this. Okay, what's the pay? Exposure. No, that's a favor. That's not an opportunity, right? So mindset is really important. But then there's just, we have this concept of being in the moment with performance, like theatrical performances, but it is true for life. A lot of people are so busy living in the past and replaying old traumas or catastrophizing the future that they're not actually experiencing the life that's right in front of them right now. So they don't really listen. They miss a lot of stuff. They don't pick up on things that they otherwise would because they're not present. They're not in the moment. And if you're going out for a nice evening, you know, ordering food you like, seeing great music, all of that stuff is worthwhile if, you know, you're going on a date, and, you know, yeah, you'd like the date to work out, but it's a pleasant evening, hopefully, regardless of whether she, in this case, he wants to see you again. And that's why if you want to practice dating, taking friends out, especially if you have opposite gender friends, if you're heterosexual, taking them out as a practice date can be really useful, especially if you're neurodivergent, right? Because then they can give you little tips, little suggestions about things, make you aware of certain elements. Now, keep in mind that just because somebody says something does not make it gospel. What is awful with one person is amazing for another. Think about the jobs I've had over the years. You should see people's faces when I tell them a lot of the things I do. It's much easier in you know, dinner parties and things like that. What do? I'm a peer counselor. That goes over way better than something like video game journalist, you know, or even stand-up comedian. Yeah, video game journalist or video game developer. Oh God, very, very mixed results. But peer counselor, what's that? It's like, well, it's people, you know, who have been through the same things, helping people through things. It's often done in conjunction with a registered therapist. It's like a 1-2 punch. It's very, very effective. Oh, and then somebody will start telling you somebody's life story. And done. You have to volunteer no more information. But, you know, that pitch of what I do took time to refine. Dating's the same way. And when you're practicing, you feel more comfortable that it's at least your behavior, your existence is appropriate to someone before you go do it with someone you're nervous around. And the reason I say especially neurodivergent people is because practice is really important. So you can't necessarily practice with that individual person, but the motions of doing it, so the rhythms are familiar, that can make it much more comfortable for a neurodivergent person. Even just getting to the theater or the restaurant or anything like that. Practicing that can be really useful. But yeah, having it be a movie you actually want to see, or a band you actually want to see, or something that you're not just doing to impress someone, you're doing it because you really like it. That means no matter what, unless it's a disaster date, then there'll be at least something. Now, some people say, well, if it was a bad date, then I'm going to associate it with the bad date. And we're getting to that, because what happens if it does go bad? For me, because of the various jobs I do, there are no wasted experiences because everything's a potentially funny story. So if something goes horribly wrong, I know I'll be able to use it, you know, with a client or as part of a joke or as part of a story. So there are no wasted experiences. That's my mindset. With rejection, it's like, all right, the rejections of the past make me more appreciative of the acceptance of the present. That's how I've done it. And reminding myself that I recovered from rejection in the past makes it easier to manage now. But I mean, guys have described and I've been in situations where it's very hard to get a person talking. This one woman that a friend of mine was seeing, it was impossible to get any personal information about her. And so I always had kind of a bad vibe, like red flags about her. And then it turned out she was not very nice to my friend. You know, they were together and she was looking for other guys on Match. So those red flags were right. And that's another thing. Be okay with, she's nice, but, you know, if there are red flags like that, if it is like pulling teeth to get any information about her, it's okay to reject her. You don't have to reject no one because you don't want to be rejected. You know, you're wasting your time with someone where it's just not clicking. Like if you think it's just a bad night, you want to give it a second chance. All right. But if it's the same on the second, definitely it's the same on the third. Cut your damn losses, dude. Or, you know, anybody. Just know this goes with friends. This goes with dates. If it's not happening, it's not happening. Again, relationships should be reciprocal. I hear from so many guys that trying to get conversations started with women is like pulling teeth. And then women, they say they expect men to carry the conversation. Red flag. You know, there seems to be this thing where certain men center the women who were cruel to them or the women who rejected them. And that is a choice. You can go, I'm not going to center the women who rejected me. And some people say, well, that's the only experience I have. Okay, but you can put them in your rear view. You can put them in the margins. They don't have to dominate your field. You know, you can just say, okay, wrong person. Not right for me. Probably great, but not for me. And it's the same also if you feel like you can't get a word in edgewise of somebody, if they're just babble. There was this one woman who was dating a friend of mine, and she would not shut up. She talked constantly, and nobody wanted to drive her anywhere because she wouldn't shut up. And this guy's not my friend anymore because he turned out to not be a great person. But, you know, he was pretty much just, he had this whole string of girlfriends that he was pretty much just using for sex, and to get stuff, money, things like that. This was one of these guys who put a lot of effort into his appearance. So, like the commenter said, potential red flag. But yeah, he didn't care that she didn't shut up because it was just about sex for him. And so the rest of us were subjected to that. And going forward, I don't take that anymore because no, there's got to be some consideration for other people, right? Because not only was he dealing with her constant talking, the rest of us were stuck with it, and it was driving people crazy. So boundaries are really important in the not attached to outcomes socialization. Setting a time limit on it too, in sort of a leave them wanting more kind of way, that can help. If you have trouble knowing when to extract yourself, just be like, okay, no matter what, we're going to go to the meal. You know, Pleasant even really like to see you again, or you don't have to say that part. And, you know, hug, maybe a kiss on the cheek, leave it there. Like setting boundaries for the date that you're not going to go further than that on this date. That can be a good not attached to outcomes thing, because then you're not left going like at the end of the night, what's the right thing to do? Right? Set your own boundary for what you're good with. There. Less is more early on. Honestly. Those are some tips. But healthy goals and healthy boundaries for everything in life are the way to go. And so having reasonable expectations going in, having standards so that you're not just accepting, you know, this is a human with XX chromosomes, therefore I must twist myself into pretzels to please her. If that's how you're going in to dates or any exchange with a woman, bro, we gotta talk. Same thing with women and men, though. I think culture doesn't push the same way. And all these expectations on men, you're lesser because you have less sex. It's not true. The number of guys I talk to who think women will reject them for a lack of sexual experience. If they do, it's a red flag, man. Ask how many women love Alistair from Dragon Age Origins, right? Like everybody's like, yay, no mistakes. Well, not everybody, but a lot of women are like, good, no mistakes, you know? Because it's different with a different person every single time anyway. So self-acceptance goes a long way as well. I know so many guys who are just so wounded by something a woman said to them in, you know, a failed romantic prospect. And some of the stuff, admittedly, is harsh. But some of it is just sort of superficial and selfish on her part. And instead of being able to go, well, that was unfair, next, or just sort of thinking about it and going, no, you know what? This just shows she wasn't right for me. It stays with them and it really, really wounds them. And that's that self-compassion thing again. To have confidence, it's not about, she's wrong, or my haters are my motivators, or anything like that. And it's like, well, that's her opinion. Maybe she meant it. Maybe she was just trying to hurt me. Maybe she was just trying to get me to go away. But I don't have to agree with her. You can go, okay, this is something I need to work on going forward. Or you can go, not a good fit, and leave it there. So that's some ways to do NATO dating, not attached to outcome. The other thing is plan to do something afterward, no matter what. So the next day, you'll plan a great like gaming session or something like that. Call a friend sort of for support. So no matter how rough it goes, if it does go rough, or if it goes great, you'll have somebody to tell about it. But having something planned after that helps your brain transition so you're not just spinning and spinning and spinning and spinning. Afterwards, it gives you the ability to sort of decompress and share and connect to someone else and not get stuck in the what ifing and second guessing. So if this stuff was useful to you, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK, or buy a one-time Leanna Care session for someone who can use it but can't afford it, coffee.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching, and I don't have it ready. Shoot. Oh no. There we are. Thanks for watching, and have a great weekend.